Chipper. How are you? This must be a great opportunity. I'm sure you're excited and can't wait for All-Star Week.
Doing well, guys. Thank you for having me. Hello, Lauren and
Hi.
gentlemen. It's good to see you guys again. Yeah, this is a tremendous opportunity, one that I just couldn't pass up. You know, the last time that the All-Star game was in Atlanta, I was actually playing in it.
Yep.
The time before that, Hank Aaron was actually playing in it. So
Wow.
any chance to get to be a part of this, and especially get a up close and personal look at the next generation coming up, and being in charge of allowing them to be able to showcase their talents to the best of their ability in the future's game, I couldn't pass that up.
Chipper, you'll have a finite amount of time to influence these young kids. What, if they could take away one thing, what do you hope it will be?
Well, I think just have fun and seize the opportunity. Like I said, you know, this is some of their first opportunities to play on national TV, to, you know, have everybody, you know, in the baseball world taking note of, you know, their talents. And, you know, I know D-Row knows as well as anybody, having managed the USA team in the World Baseball Classic. It is a very short period of time. We're going to have some restrictions by some of these, you know, by some of these teams and some of these organizations, but we're going to give them every opportunity to have fun and enjoy the experience.
And then you were just saying, you know, about talents right now in the game. And I heard you say before, if you were to play in this era with this guy throwing almost 100 every time, that you will hit 200. Come on, man. I don't know about that, because you were a great hitter. So, you know.
Howard, you gotta stay humble, buddy. You know, trying to make my guys look good, and no, but honestly, to be honest, you know, back when we played, the strike zones were a little bigger, so we had to cover more acreage. But you know, I think now that they actually have to throw the ball over the plate, you know as well as I do, it doesn't matter how hard you throw it. If we know, you know, a freight train's coming, we can time it. So, you know, if they throw it over the plate, we were going to whack it regardless. You just caught me in a humble moment. That's all there was.
Chip, I don't think people truly realize, like, you're one of the greatest players to ever put a uniform on, but I felt like you were one of the greatest coaches I had ever been around. You took time to take the young guys into the video room, teach them how to game plan. You made adjustments with guys' swings. Like, where did that come from? Is that from your dad, or is that just your love of the game?
That's all Pops, and I think being a student of the game came from him as well. You know, a lot of people say, you know, I didn't like a lot of company during the course of the game, and that wasn't the fact. I had a bunch of conversations during the course of games with other guys, but it was centered around what was going on the field. There was very little BS in my game, you know, in the dugout once the game started, because I always figured I could, if I paid attention, I could figure out a pattern. I could figure out maybe a tip. You know, I could learn from my teammates. My teammates could learn from me. But yeah, that all came from Dad. The baseball IQ and the being a student of the game was, you know, he was a 30-year public school math teacher, you know, while I was growing up. So it was hard not to take heed of what he said.
I think the toughest thing, I coach obviously my son's team, he's 15 years old. The toughest conversations I have with a few of the parents are on switch hitting. Because, I mean, my dad, I grew up, he was like, you don't even know how to hit right-handed. Why am I showing you how to hit left-handed? And that's seriously how I attacked it, right? And I didn't until I met a guy like you and Rudy Jaramillo. So what would you tell a young kid, or even a young high school coach who's going to, you got somebody who wants to entertain switch hitting?
I would say do it, and start at a very early age. There are very few Eddie Murrays out there who kind of waited until he was in Double-A to start switch hitting. Wow. You know, this was an experiment for me that started at 7 years old, and the left-handed swing didn't become natural to me until I was 19 or 20 years old. So it's very important to get both of those swings on par with each other to become an effective switch hitter, and that takes repetitions, just a ton of repetitions. And I've been doing it since I was 7. And I think Albert can attest, you can attest, guys who have stood 60 feet 6 inches from, say a dominant Kevin Brown right-handed slider. It's a lot easier to hit those sliders coming into you than it is going away from you. Maybe not for Albert, but the rest of us humans, it was, it would have been tough. But I can promise you this, seeing Randy Johnson in the right-handed batter's box as opposed to the left-handed batter's box, every once in a while you can swing the momentum in your favor. Yeah. But, if you're facing him lefty on lefty, that's a tough task.
Chip, obviously, you were young, I was a young player, playing for a Hall of Fame manager, Bobby Cox. How was that relationship? And did that help you, especially in your early career, to have the success that you had?
Well, Bobby was probably the most influential person in my professional career. I always give a ton of credit to my mother and father for setting the foundation, but it takes other people along the way to have that confidence in you. And I don't know many managers who would have brought in a 21-year-old kid and thrown him in the 3-hole and thrown him out there at third base from day one and said, go get him, kid. I think it was the kind of the perfect storm. I had Fred McGriff and David Justice sitting behind me, so I was going to get a lot of fastballs. And Bobby did know that I could hit the fastball, and that was the biggest thing. But Bobby's, the lines of communication were always open. The door to his office was always open. He let guys like myself and John Smoltz police the clubhouse. That was our spot. We were in charge of running that club, and come the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, then all of a sudden it became his club. He was making the decisions at that point. So, D-Row can attest to that. D-Row and I were locker mates for the first 6 seasons and
6
7
years.
seasons. So
I watched what a superstar could do.
Anytime you share a spittoon with a guy for 7 years, it's you get to know each other pretty well. So we had a pretty tight clubhouse.
Well, Chipper, we look forward to watching you in the dugout for the National League at the Futures game during All-Star Week in Atlanta. There's so many great baseball fans in the southeastern part of the country. I know that they can't wait to see you in uniform again during All-Star Week. Thank you very much for the time. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Appreciate it, guys.